Greetings all, Shane Bruce, Resto Mod Daisy. In today's installment, we're going to take a look at gun number 2 from our 3-gun set from earlier this week, all the way from California. This is a Daisy model 101, number 101, model 36. Now, it's got a pretty heavy coat of paint on it, so it may be difficult to make out the numbers. The 101-36 is kind of unique. It is a single-shot Daisy, and by that I mean you actually drop a BB down the shot tube from the muzzle end. You'll notice here on the end of the shot tube that there is no opening for any way for a BB to feed in there. So the way the gun gets loaded is you take a BB, and when the gun's all complete, you just drop your BB down the muzzle, and it goes to the bottom where it hits a small retaining system, and then when you pull the trigger, it gets shot. But no rattle trap gun, quiet gun, but one shot at a time, a muzzle loader. And we'll cover some things about loading and firing it later when we get it put back together. Now, because it is a single shot BB, it has a unique cylinder head. The plunger assembly on this does not have an air tube. If we'll take a look at another older Daisy with leather seals, we see we have an air tube. And that is not present on the 101-36 because it is a single shot. Now, what we've done with this gun is, because it's equipped with leather seals, I removed the plunger head assembly, and I removed the abutment washer from the gun, and I soaked them overnight in some 30-weight non-detergent oil to let them suck up some oil, gain a little bit of width or a little bit of integrity, but mostly just let them suck up some oil, and then reinstalled them in the gun. And with the factory spring, and I want to point out something about this spring as well. You'll notice it's kind of got a copper cast to it. This is an old Daisy spring. This gun is certainly pre-40s, maybe the cusp of the 30s. In years gone by, Daisy's springs had a copper kind of, not a coating really, but just a cast to them. And you can see the difference in color if we compare it to a modern spring, which is kind of a steel gray. It doesn't have that copper wash look to it. So this old spring was in pretty good shape, wasn't sacked. So reinstalled it, reinstalled the original plunger head, reinstalled the original abutment washer. Got the gun all back together, and damned if it doesn't shoot pretty good. First round down range was 100 meters a second. That's like 324. So we've discussed the difference in the plunger heads, and this is an example of what a leather abutment seal looks like, pretty chewed up. But if you keep them well lubricated, they will continue to work for you. But when they fail, you can replace them with more modern stuff. And the other thing I wanted to point out to those of you who have older Daisies, because if you've got some of these old guns with the leather seals, you will run into one with leather seals that had the air tube broken off. I hang on to stuff like this just because I like it, but now I realize I could actually use this to make a single shot air tube for a 101 Model 36 if I run into another one that doesn't have the equipment that comes with it. All right, now we're going to go back on the bench and we're going to reinstall stuff and we're going to fire it. So we'll get caught back to you in just a second. Okay, we're at the bench. What we're going to do is we're going to take our plunger assembly without the air tube. We're going to install it in the back of the receiver. I'm going to push that forward by hand. It's a pretty easy fit. We're going to take our little wooden dowel and we're going to shove it a little further in until we get about there. Now we're going to take a look at the back, and we're going to try and make sure that the plunger assembly itself is straight up and down so we don't give ourselves any problems trying to get our mainspring compression tool in place. And y'all probably remember this, the old mainspring compression tool. We're going to use it once again. So now you're going to slide in like so until we make contact with the spring. It should happen sometime. Let me step over this way a second. And well, that's one of the reasons you try to make sure that the plunger assembly is upright, because if it's canted at an angle, you'll block your access along either side. You need that to be able to get to the mainspring. And we seem to have a problem. There we are. All right, so now we're going to compress the mainspring. locate my slot. Install my pin. And we'll double check that real quick to make sure that we're on our bearing strut. Yeah, all right. So we've got that, here we'll shine a little light in there. You'll see that the pin we just slid in is above the pin at the base there, and that's what the spring anchor secures to. So now what we're going to do is drop in the lever. Once we get that installed, we'll install a trigger. Then we'll put the buttstock on it, put the air tube in it, or the shot tube in it, and then bang around through the chronograph, just so you guys can see the speed level this little gun runs at. It's pretty amazing, actually. I mean, I have to work like the devil to get 324 feet a second out of a Red Ryder, but this little single-shot BB gun just works. Of course, most people would not appreciate the fact that it's a single shot, because that's a bit slow. All right, now this is the trigger return spring. We got to make sure that the trigger return spring engages the little spur at the back of the trigger. If it does not, your gun won't work right. So when you're getting it in, you got to make sure that you get spring tension on the trigger. Now we got to put our bolt in and secure the buttstock. And we'll get that done in just a second here and fire the gun. All right. All right, that's good, that's good. Now we're going to take it out of the vise. We're going to take it over the workbench, and we're going to install the uber short air tube. As we mentioned before, the shot tube on the 101 102s are short, so it can be problematic in finding one. This is a Red Ryder shot tube from a model 1938 or another one. And this is the 102 shot tube, and you can see there's several inches of difference in length. So that's something to bear in mind if you start looking for one of these little guns. It's a thread-in tube, so you just run it down. There's no slot at the top to drop BBs because you have to drop BBs from the muzzle. Now, recommended loading systems, a way to load the gun. You can drop a BB down and then arm the gun, but if you do that, you'll have a live round in the chamber. And if you drop the lever, you might shoot yourself in the hand. So I'd recommend you take your BB, put it in the muzzle, then cock the gun. You might want to give the gun a tap just to make sure she's seated. Now we're going to turn the chronograph on, so let's get positioned for that. And see how fast this guy's running. 106 meters a second. That's pretty impressive. So, as far as I'm concerned, the little gun is fixed. I'll get with the owner and see if he wants to do anything, reference the appearance of the metal, or possibly, a new stock maybe, or just work the old one back, put some finish on it. Currently doesn't have much in the way of any protection. But either way, a fine little gun. I would say if you could find one that's complete, you probably ought to pick it up, because they're punchy little puppies. That's all we've got for you today. This is Shane Bruce, Rest of My Daisy, signing off.